is about President Obama's dreams in the Native Americans. Native Americans say that we must read each other's dreams. We can't read our own dreams. Or at least uh, a chief on YouTube said that. I have to find his link again, and I'll attach it to this video. So we must read each other's dreams in relationship to. For example, tomorrow there's a big museum to acknowledge what is yet fully no one found the words to explain the nature of organized crime with slavery. Now we must understand that and how foreign criminal policing agencies made terror laws like that. They had ones against everybody, and how everybody was political theater, not only in their relationships to each other, but their relationships to their family too, and not in relationship to their own thoughts and judgment and fears leading. The same thing that did that made those laws to divide us and to divide the Native American tribes and from education. See, it was more insidious than just surface value, divide and conquer physical war things. This is on fronts that we lost to in the American Revolution. And because we lost to them and they controlled the sciences, they insidiously made insidious lies as facts treatments. They projected theater with methods that were to this that no one understood because they weren't let to understood education. Human education was criminally re-engineered. Ancient revelations, the nature of nations of national identities we have now were not once. Ratiocination is where we're ratiocinating. There's one shared positive space value nature, one nature of positive identity. Anyone who has positive identity can only be this, unless it's only semi-temporary positive identity. That's why it's so important to understand that there's only one value nature system that's actively in demonstration to us. There's only one nature of positive that is actively in demonstration to us. And sciences have to teach about what the identity, why every value has a distinct identity to teach this. Every value has a distinct identity and demonstration of the one identity that actively in demonstration to us. The only nature of positive. It's diffusing through matter. Now the religions had to take counter fronts to this, remembering ancient revelations and understanding a nature of humanity that understood them. In other words, if you have criminally re-engineered education, it attaches to your conviction natures. And then when you have wars and all kinds of homeland crime natures and criminally legalized ones, then that makes... So in other words, with the police problem too, it's the same thing. The same thing that actively needs to maintain polarity nature between people with forced to fake sides, not to understand the active demonstration, the active correlation nature, the value progressing the active correlation nature. And when it's not negative, when it's negative value nature only realized, it pushes positive value nature away from here. And that causes negative value nature progressions. We have negative value nature progressions on the streets because we have legal natures top down that never explained the organized crime nature through education and staying our streets, hurt areas, and through campuses, intercampuses, science. The criminal justice industry, for an example, is only realized trained to opinions and natures of hurt conviction nature. That's only realized because of how everyone's always only realized to expert lean, and everyone shares court lean with this. Needing the court to explain what the court is already involved in per natures of organized crime that they don't understand, because they're only let realize to physical delusions that business could represent the surface value of the Constitution. Excuse me, I shared what. So the there are all the leaders of the world and the Native Americans share the fact that we have opinion natures of everybody to one all to an arrays of one net. In other words, we have all different opinion natures, but there's no difference. All multi-front positions for and with the needs of what shares our nations stayed incapable of understanding the nature of organized of her conviction natures to all areas and to its roles with crime statistics and with jails and with innocence in there and with real criminals in there, but with them having been hurt by more insidious worse crime natures that no one has explained. So we make a big mistake if we don't explain this with the museum opening up tomorrow. And if we refer to it as Black Americans, in other words, we have to understand that the legal nature tactic, intercultural police from Africa too, what they did, they shared the whole entire species to treatments of logic, entertaining it, that are incapable of not fighting with each other when someone needs to point out evidence fabrications caused by them because of how it's caused through what stayed to our areas. This is what religions are about, and science reveals this. There is no difference between science and religion if you're dealing in reality. You know what I mean? If you force surface value of with the interpretation of religions, then you're forcing that the enemies that had control over human education. They had control over human education. In other words, they had control over the followers of the religions, except for they had to explain for them, but they didn't have the institution of. They had an institution of a church which would not have been able to stay if it wasn't religion. That's where religion was revealed to defend what the only active positive space nature identity actively revealed to the ancients before criminal persuasions of natures of internation crime and of international a species value nature captivation method. So no human wants these would want business natures like that and greed to do those things. Those kind of where those kind of phenomena gets involved is because there's already was top down state criminal terror database relationships to everybody with slavery. Not and with, that wasn't there was terror laws against the white people too, against all people. You know what I mean? In other words, it's so crazy that if you need to use the term criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police officer. I'm not I just English major, communications major. I graduated. But this a criminal enterprise. This is what religions are saying. Demonstrably, there's proof. A criminal enterprise causes negative value, especially international one, archetypal criminal enterprise. The devil. This is more logically what the devil is about. Is about an international organized crime method that has the nations stuck with opinion natures to erase, all preventing the free speech of our leaders. How does you say why don't they just say something then? Because they're already tied to negotiations with hundreds of countries, and from and nature and only having been realized trained to justifications of positions furthering originally insidiously stayed hidden and methods and that we lost to in the American Revolution. So they kept us taking credit for their measuring on us taking credit for their position. That's what they do when they blame um, slavery on hate and on base things. It was an organized crime method. And every criminal enterprise causes natures of criminal insidiousness and of like wrongdoers. It causes wrongdoers and it causes people who commit predicate act crimes like murder and like extortion and like mail fraud. And what we need to understand was what made our government, what made our agencies, our branches, what had them extorted too, because everyone was only realized to positions trained through uncharged natures of organized crime with geopolitical education. So now, the political candidates, for example, they're forced to be retreat natures in relationship to hundreds of impositions. In relationship, for example, just this what Hillary was trying to talk about. People need the prescription medication for real conditions. Thank God I don't have to take any, or someday we're all gonna get sooner or later, or right from the beginnings. We need health care, but health care is tied to this too. That's what had it centered it from the beginning. That's where when you have terror laws like that, and you have a terror shared, it wasn't just England. England was already only realized to criminal education. All modern nations were only realized to being hurt conviction natures, and to delusion propagation natures, and to insidious natures, because of the criminal reengineering of education in the original Internation Campus Marcius, in the original Internation of the nation science and nature of internation science, and the original nature of our species with that, knowing that they could perpetuate a method of having everyone blaming on other things. In other words, now they're gonna justify. Now all nations justify natures of the law that aren't the law. In other words, we don't have free speech left, and we still have the same methods of extortion with our branches, with roles with it, affected to them with needs to lie in relationship to what they don't understand, as they just took their business and take it as is, as they trained it to be. For example, with their roles with psychology. This has been with see, now this is a grave imposition on healthcare, on real healthcare. They're using this to evidence fabricate, and they're using this because, in other words, this is with the nature of the court, and then the court is not supposed to talk about medical information, and then they're told to play games where they talk through the people there, and if the person goes with no one, then they have they tell the lawyers to to pretend they had said things they never said, to pretend they had comprehensions they never had, and pretend they never said threats they never said, admitting falsified police reports. And so we have systemic. They don't show writing, so it's in relationship to we have systemic witness. They're doing all different kinds they're telling witnesses to say things against their will. Proofs of this. They're writing things that witnesses didn't say. They're pretending people had conversations that never were. They don't even know people. They just went to the school with them or whatever like that. They orchestrate illusions through time in relationship to evidence fabrication methods. So we don't have free speech. Someone can ask to make a police report. They just make up grandiose allegations against them. So we have natures of politics that are afraid to speak because for good reason, because no one can think honestly. Everyone's a hurt conviction nature. Everyone's a evidence fabrication nature. Everyone's to all areas of every nation. These aren't human standards, for example. That's the proofs. That's how you see with correlation. You look into New York. Those are there are colonial impositions there. But see, because we didn't have those natures of organized crime understood, we have natures of of business and of convictions, self-defended and even glorified as breaching possessions. We lost on many fronts in the American Revolution. And now what that does is it maintains all kinds of natures of hurt to all areas of urban society. And then when we have when we have it in the news, they look at it in relationship to business, but they don't really understand that if those little boys and girls and those elderly people were in and the adults who had to grow up through this, if they had been in suburban areas, too, there's a different nature of the same people involved with the drugs and furthering the problem through time and all the murderous natures and the crime progressions are with the hospitals, with psychology. This has been through time. They did 6 things with slavery, and this was in relationship to evidence fabrication methods and divide and conquer methods, not with physics, but with our treatments of the law, with us as tools measured at reaction natures, evidence fabrication natures. I want to apologize to Iraq. That was not our. I would bet that was not our. It was our. When there's the coalitions, these are natures of police that never let go of us since before colonization, and then we were forced to call them allies in relationship to wars, just like their nations. And this was part of the trick that every nation fall to. In other words, they don't understand. No one admitted to understand the proofs that correlate to leverage to say international business it was criminally legalized. In other words, so it's a negative value nature progressions caused by a criminal enterprise of natures that are international to all areas. And with that nature is shared integrity and rules in relationship to business, but in relationship to human standards, not just American standards, because we have to do this together, but it leaves it forsaken. And not only does it leave it forsaken, delusion propagates it, and it's evidence fabrication nature. The leaders of our nations one way, and it leaves us with the campus leaving us other ways, and it leaves them with insidious means to maintain their needs for live progression maintenances blamed on other things. So we don't have free speech. You could tell the media something that happened online, for example, with threats from people with a court, right online, and then they say because they don't know about it, then they'll evidence fabricate and start evidence sequence shifting. This was with 9/11 in connected ways too, in a federal court that day, and that was proven after. And there was, but there's further systematic corruption with that, with in other words, that's but with Connecticut courts per confessions and per recorded proofs. But in other words, people could have. People have experience. In other words, if you were enslaved or if you were threatened by terror laws, because they had terror laws, if you even dreamed about communicating about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored database conversations, they had databases with writing first. That's how they did. Not just for business. That wasn't for business. That was for their narrative. That was with a criminal insidiousness narrative. The real business they wanted, they were using business as a means to keep evidence fabrication nature, hurt conviction natures, fighting with each other. In other words, to keep a nature, a breaching nature, an army against ourselves. That's what's wrong with New York City. Every single person's the same positive identity and wants that. This is why so many people pray for Garden, but then no one, everyone stays bowed. But this is why our courts are only let train realize that they need they want everyone just to fold their hands, which is what you have to do. You have to be respectful in court. I'll tell you right now, they'll throw you in jail. If you don't, they'll say you did sometimes. There are proofs of this. We still are not. We still have, criminal influences over the branches of our nations, each one. This is how they keep business going while they have nuclear weapons at its back, pretending there's something, slandering what stability is. That these sciences are obfuscating too with math, for example. Really, the law is what leads politics. You know what I mean? They're making business because the nature of the business argument is attached to all kinds of natures of policing with all kinds of natures of juxtaposed natures of business like this. In other words, natures of potential crime and threats against everybody invested to be stuck like this. We don't have we have. It's worse to be pseudo morality. For example, too, so we have. That's how they go after our service people. This is in relationship to natures of. There are natures of police. There are all kinds of police forms. And then there are some who are psychologists, and we have to address. There's demonstrably, this industry's doing worse than just delusion propagating through our schools. They're with the drug problem, with all these people with prescription drugs and other different kind of drugs problems, and they use that they have the phenomena of their roles as healthcare when they have real healthcare problems. So then they have cancer patients and stuff like that with these clicks on the street with the drugs with them. So maybe they need drugs and they're not legal, so they let them have it. That's part of the reason. But they're using this they're having crime natures juxtaposed with the people living next to our colleges and next to our schools. And by having that, they maintain evidence fabrication methods. And by not allowing free speech, they allow the courts just to crush or kill free speech. It's the same thing. Put it in prison. There's no free speech in prison. They lie about everything in there. I was put in there under with lies, but they won't put anything in writing, so I can't address it. And then what they do? When other police natures get involved, they affect people to say things that then they can't go back and say. So they have to make up narratives that get shared together. They're shown how to lie by the greatest liars. So we have to watch out. This is what the tree of life and the tree of good, the knowledge of good and evil. There is only one active positive in demonstration to us, and it demonstrates through positive and negative value nature progressions, through correlation, this way, through nature inherent to correlation. See, because we blame negative value nature progressions and negative value nature existence with our urban areas and with our logistical impositions, which are legal nature, because we blame them on other things, all kind of different guises shared, physical delusions in relationship to what math is and what business is and what really knowledge is needed, what knowledge really is needed to lead. When it gets in relationship to trade agreements and stuff like that, that's different. But it's also connected to wars. That's what Obama's trying to say to Mr. Trump. But they don't have free speech because everyone's got fax treatments that are and only letting entertained and defended and glorified physical mistreatments of facts. In other words, we have these movements that are just making top down. They're making debate. They're calling debate. they're communicating that debate is about grammar school fight logic, you know, because they don't have the trade agreements and the impositions of the natures of our nation and all of our species really honestly understood. They have it only let trained legal natures that are negative value nature progressions in ancient time because of the criminal enterprise, regardless if it's legalized. It was criminally legalized. It's preventing free speech. We have and we have no we have a phenomenon of statutes and methods that with stewards that understand how to get over the law, so they maintain them to exploitations of that to all areas, intercity, and then they run other investigations through them. They ask them questions, or either who knows if they even tell them sometimes that they've used them as witnesses, because they have shifting narratives about who are the witnesses on this too, with with the guys who threaten a little girl to me and stuff like that, and with the police and with the campus. I don't know with the names and stuff like that. They threatened me not to put anything in writing, and this is after they had a police from the court had threatened rape, and inside the court they admitted to falsified police reports with no writing, just one charge, and with it involved with a number of police departments, including a transport from a guy from my a McGee who had other guys use his name too. Other falsified police reports. This has been through time every year. So this is extortion. But there, no one will put anything in writing, and they admitted and demonstrably put lies in databases, each branches, and with campus ones, they have Confederate flag theme, and they have a couple of families that claim to be overtly KKK. I don't even know one family's name, but it's a guy connected. People go see what they did through time. They made people come up to me with confessions, and then you don't know them, but then they go away, and you're not going to say, you're not going to start to other people you don't know. What they do, they even control where people are sitting in school, like who they're around, and then because they make people pretend to be to hate you on one side, and they tell people pretend to be your friend on the other, and you're not even communicating with them the whole time. The only reason you know them because when you're young, some people approach you with things. This is in relationship to the nature of interbranch families and how they get stayed involved with this. We have to understand our original impositions, and we have to. That's why we need forgiveness, because in the course of the conversation, we have to use premises. So we have to show who's wrong. But if we start throwing everyone in jail when everyone's wrong, the nature of it settles out in measured ways to be tool evidence fabrication natures, hurt conviction natures, and indifference to the ones who are getting hurt by it. That's why Hartford's falling apart. They don't, because they put business as a fraud nature, as they have our politics pretending business. It has anything to do with the law. You know what I'm saying? With truth, as truth. The law is about truth and about positive. This is what our religions are saying. We have evidence, fabrication nature, legal natures, only realized, trained. And then they self-defend that. This is more logic. So we have a criminal enterprise. Criminal enterprise causes criminal insidiousness natures like wrongdoers and like people who commit predicate acts. In English, a predicate is a space value. With the law, I'm not a lawyer, but demonstrably, a predicate act is a relationship to a negative value nature progression caused by a criminal enterprise. Why is a criminal enterprise cause a negative value nature progression? Because the only unchanging positive space value nature, value A, where it's juxtaposed with staying with and as the value inherent to physical temporary space nature. It is a longing to that. And everything that is not that is longing away from it. And this is progressively, because what is of value is coming through the body actively, not just as us, but as Earth. And this is for core. This is how we are, correlation nature. Three ways as a body of value to as a species to each other, and also in relationship to humanity. So even if we were, even right now, we're not the nations aren't positive value nature to each other. Not one is ratiocinating. Every single one is obfuscating it. Not one is letting free speech. Every single one is obfuscating, punishing, even killing it. Even ours. There are proofs of it. We have sick branches. We have sick nations. And no one has the words for it. And that's not by accident. That's what the problem is. And see, when you don't teach that problem, you're teaching the kids. You're having the insidious natures, evidence fabrication natures, to justify positions in relationship that were made to exploit all age groups, all levels of human life and innocence, to stay us hurt evidence fabrication natures to all areas, blame. So then we're reaction natures, and we hurt conviction natures. We gave up on the law. So what stays with the prisons and the medicine and the nature of the law only realized as Oz. That's why they came with that term, shock and awe, because they don't want George Bush, and they don't want the nature of America trying to figure out means to explain a way to freedom and security for everybody. Every single human body of consciousness wants it for everybody. So, but see, now when we're on an ulterior from natural value nature system, we have ulterior from natural. We have criminally persuaded human natures insidiously. So this is going to be, business, just respect for business, and they're not letting free speech. Free speech and real proper facts treatments would have revealed all kinds of potentials. That's what, because then we're a nature that is unchanging, positive nature, and what that does, that means we connect with the further nature of it, and that's just a progressive value. So a nature that is greater than the value of Earth, but still in diffusion through here. It forces positive value nature progressions, which is its own progression. And when we're not that nature, we're not forcing that progression because it's being pushed from here, that nature. How? Because inherent to every temporary space nature is unchanging positive value nature. Is space nature's unchanging positive identity. So in other words, inherent to consciousness, not consciousness overall, but inherent to consciousness is what is actively in demonstration to us. Three ways: with the finite, with bodies of value, and overall. But we're going to see how my model works here. With I'm going to draw it for you after. It's with we go like this. We make the things. In other words, the finite is always going to be on the right with plus. And we're going to see how this changes. What changes this? In other words, for example, if we're a group, we're a nation, we're still a finite. So we're still going to be in the first place on the left, from left to right. Finite comes from the bond to matter, before and as the value of all finite, in relationship to the one identity of value, in demonstration actively, with every temporary value, in demonstration to nature inherent to consciousness, which is only temporary positive value nature. And what is only temporary positive only has, again, what is unchanging positive inherent to it. So, what is that? Some kind of styrofoam. So unchanging positive is inherent to consciousness, even consciousness. That's what makes it negative value nature. When we don't value nature inherent to consciousness, nobody, when they look at the cities, they value. They look away because they're thinking with a only let realized, self-defended, even glorified ulterior from actual value nature system. So it's a negative value nature system. It's causing negative value nature progressions. And so what people do is blame it on other things. And even and they're right sometimes because they're right. What makes them think they're right? In other words, they're wrong. But what makes them think they're right is because people put physics before the value of physics before metaphysics. In other words, understanding and truth, real truth. In other words, and the real law, and top down, they just everyone gets their spot and they're happy. But how they were trained to fit the positions is relying upon other experts. Is not relying upon honest facts treatments, and it can't. And what makes sure it can't is a method that holds people telling lies that they're not supposed to do. Like courts aren't supposed to threaten rapes over the internet and spread rumors with people, and they're not supposed to do that with college campuses too. And I wasn't a math guy, but there's systemic problem. There was demonstrations that the roles of legal natures with this, which is more than one agency per recorded proofs per them. Now this is what they do too. They say they attach me to fake conversations when I try to report related confessions that police in my area, healthcare people in my area, and like medical people in my area, they affected because there's a pond in my area, and they had like gangster kids attached to my previous neighbors and police family in the area that tied to them. So what they do too is they have roles with the narratives with the police reports that are now active. In other words, they threatened some guy who made a confession to me out of nowhere. In other words, this is what they do. The first time he ever walked up to me in his life, and he said, you know, a girl you saw me walking with one time," and he said she died of the drugs, of some drugs, and they were he was saying he implied with my neighbors, other what it used to be. So I have neighbors in my grade that I never had anything to do with, like the whole time I was in high school after, and they had like a police dispatcher woman and stuff like that. And according to them, and in another house, there's a Colo guy, the Phil Colo. He doesn't, he reportedly has roles with the related evidence fabrications and the threats against. But he has ties to the people with the threats, the rape threats, and with the court investigator and other police court police people that were threatened rape like over the internet, like with a guy with Wethersfield police, and the narratives from Erickner was how he spelled it. And he was also posting a fake legal site and pretending to know me using Confederate flag and spreading rumors with a court and harassing people in the context of a murder shooting in Hartford. And the police are with it. See, the reason those natures of crimes take place are because how they've been using those people for evidence fabrications, for witnesses on paper and background narratives that no one's checking, which are completely made up, murderously, too, even tied to 9/11. They attached me to fake conversations about 9/11, about legal cases that were in that context with related evidence fabrications proven from inside the court next to the 9/11 Trade Center, and in relationship to federal criminals with that case, and that had a daughter in my grade and had other relationships to the drug dealers in my grade when I was growing up, and they had a co-defendant, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with that, and then they have other people who are claiming to be CIA on the internet and they were spreading rumors that I was talking about the CIA. They didn't get it from listening to me because I was watching the narratives from in relationship to the pages that were coming on to me, to my page, and trying to have a conversation with me, like people I never had anything to do with growing up. Now they're trying to like pretend like I'm involved. I want to be involved with their drug and criminal police and healthcare and all kinds of gang stuff. Like one family says they're KKK growing up. They're all, they're nuts. But then there's a guy with that in relationship to some other bodies that dumping stuff and related, and with Rocky Hill Police with drugs with them, with Weathersfield Police, per their friends. And this is in relationship to political corruption. People I don't even know. They suggested too that they pretended my family to fake conversations and about me with their police reports. So they pretend my own family said things that they never said, but they're not putting it on paper. They're having complete narratives that are fraud in the background. This is also in relationship to Cuddy's family and relationship to confessions connected all kinds of ways, criminal persuasions of the people with the reporting of the what is it, the inspector where they inspected dead bodies. So, 23 a day or whatever, the amount of service people killing each other, I don't believe it. I believe, it's too easy. They have too many insights for too long, and they're using them for murderously. You can't trust them with those statistics. Maybe, we have to have more transparency, and we don't have even the surface values of the Constitution let low the same organized crime methods. Then you see there's people that have been hurt their whole lives. Their parents hurt their whole lives, and little kids and stuff like that. And they're teaching them it's prejudice made that. So they're teaching them to want to counter hate. You know what I mean? Hate didn't make. They're trying to. They're hurting the psychology. They're delusion propagating with the most exploited areas through time. They failed. Real science would have revealed the real potential, real positive value nature progressions, and it never did, and not by accident. And we cannot defend the Constitution as a business. So the president wants the world in his dreams, and with the Native American dreams. They want the world to let us have a conversation where we can fight with each other, but it's not connected to the natures of logic that each side is forcing each other to defend, with each side international wise with complex litigation, and each side is the side they're being forced to defend is evident fabrication natures, as hurt conviction natures, as indifference natures to the roles with the role in relationship to the nature of American standards, which are nothing, they're nothing. So we use pantheism now. We put it. I'll just take New York, and we start a pamphlet too. We need a pamphlet. Just give me just put a place, a business up for someone. That's what someone has to do. Put a business up. If I was a sports team, I would just give a business. Why does everyone have to give it just something, a gift or something that's going to be for them? Why can't they build something that's going to grow? You know what I'm saying? At least give it to the landscape and to healthcare, things that we all need. And then it's an increasing value. And that we consciously and communicate and admit and understand that and how our human value nature system is criminal persuasions that are top down, and we understand how we say that together. Then we could admit the Native American dreams. We could even face them. You know what I mean? Because they denatured the landscape. Nashantucket Pequot Tribal Museum is the oldest Native American museum in the nation. It's in Rhode Island, right on the Connecticut. It's in Connecticut, right in the right there, like 5-minute drive to Rhode Island, in the beach. And they remember having their clam beds and all kinds of natural resources, food sources, denatured, taken out, trees knocked down. They probably used, I don't know if, I didn't read that. They probably use pigs, all kinds of, because that's like a war tactic. If you take pigs, they have problems with wild pigs in this country still. They have problems with them because once they get going, they ruin everything, and they're just like a pain, you know. They're like an army, and that's what they do that for. Not to be evil. I mean, it's evil, but their motivations were for long-term evidence fabrication methods, and we're already staying the sciences for roles with this. They knew the Earth wasn't flat. The sciences, geopolitical campus, but they were teaching that it was flat. That's what I read. I can't find where I read that, but they know that, and there's other means to correlate that's true anyways. There's other means to correlate. So we have to understand again about criminal insidiousness. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a police, and I'm not a criminal. But criminal insidiousness is with the narratives and with summary convictions of American history, even in relationship to narratives through time too. First, so in relationship to other natures of nations, and of wanted cultural respects and of justifications of that. And in other words, too, in relationship to, because we don't understand this nature of organized crime, we don't understand the nature of war. So what we do is we attack the surface leaders and we force them demonized with the entire nature, with the entire subnature of nations, like Hitler, and we leave out what the worst evil on the Jews was with the Joseph Mengele, who did scientific experiments on the on Jewish people. But the reason they did this was to single out a side, to cultivate a side, and to maintain already propagated, cultivated sides. You know, I mean, to cultivate already propagated sides. In other words, in relationship to geopolitical, criminal, campus, you know, inter-science, and prison, and medical juxtapositions of natures of organized crime that we haven't had addressed. In other words, the nature of organized crime, that was an insidious front. In other words, it was like a distraction in relationship to fronts that America lost to in the American Revolution, too. That was with a result of the nature of how we were there. You know, not even addressing if it was right or wrong to be in the war. The nature, we were not alone in it. In other words, psychology was already entrenched. They already had insidious roles. Now with slavery in the North too, in relationship to narratives with the Underground Railroad. That was all multi-front in relationship to treatments of complex litigation and of methods, keeping the nature, the free speech of the nature of leaders extorted low, the nature of the opinion natures bottom up, and the natures of opinions top down as well in relationship to business positions and all kinds of shared policing positions and markets positions forced. That's why they denatured the Mashantucket land and burned hundreds of acres of woods and denatured the soils through time. We rake the leaves every year. Every year there's less worms on the ground. That's not only the trees trying to fertilize themselves that were taken away. That's a life. In other words, that's what the cause to positive value nature progressions is diffusing through matter earth. See, but we're taking this away. We're negative value nature. And what that does is cause negative value nature progressions. But we're not being able to correlate to see this because we're only taught to see value through physical delusions and business and value nature systems all ulterior from the one. So everyone's evidence fabrication nature in relationship to the actual space nature law. So God help us if we don't admit